Welcome to the Big Life Podcast, where dreams aren't just imagined, they're built brick by brick, belief by belief. Hosted by Neal Oates Jr. and Robin Lewis, this show is your invitation to discover your amazing capabilities, invest in your growth, and unleash your potential in ways you've only dreamed of. Join Neal and Robin as they dive deep into stories, insights, and tools designed to inspire you to show up big, live intentionally, and give yourself away for the betterment of those around you. Get ready to rise to what you're truly worthy of. The Big Life starts now.
Welcome to the podcast, ladies and gentlemen. Neal Oates Jr., Robin Lewis. Mr. Robin Lewis, how are you doing today, sir?
Mr. Neal Oates Jr., I am doing great. You and I just had a few minutes conversation before we actually hit record, and it's already perked me up, man. It's always good to get together with Neal Oates. I know our listeners feel that, and we're grateful that you're here with us, our listeners, and we have a good one here for you today.
We have a great one. And Robin, as we were preparing for this, the ideas were flowing and the amount of information during preparation was overwhelming. So we're not going to hit everything that we prepared, but we are going to lay a groundwork. We're going to lay a foundation for what I believe is a necessary topic. And we're looking at when the blessing requires better systems. And this podcast, The Big Life, is a blessing, but it has required better systems in order for us to steward this thing the right way for ourselves and for our listeners. And that's what we were talking about, ladies and gentlemen, before we got on, how we can pray for things, but not have the systems to support that blessing. So we're going to walk through that. Robin, when you hear that, what just comes to your mind right off the top, sir?
Well, a couple of things. First of all, I am not the strongest in it. That's an area where I think some people naturally, that's their temperament, is to automatically think systems. That's not mine. And so I had to be very intentional about it because it's absolutely no doubt in my mind. I've had experience, maybe if we get the opportunity, I'll share, where as a business owner and leader, I had to be very intentional about putting systems in place, because if not, chaos, is what we got instead. And everybody doing things their own way. And so that in and of itself is not, a good thing.
Robin, here's what I know. I know you and we are men of faith. We believe, we pray for these blessings. God, deliver us this, give us more clients, more business, more influence, more money, right? And then we're like, God, why isn't it here? Why isn't it here? And it might be because we don't have the system to sustain it, or he might answer that prayer, give us the blessing, and then we're crushed by that blessing. And neither one of those is the design that we're going after. So we're going to just have some real conversation around that. But Robin, if you're open to it, let's just jump right into it and go ahead. When have we experienced this in real life? I know I have seen it in my life when I've prayed for things. For instance, as a coach, I've prayed for more coaching clients, bigger coaching clients, those who have bigger problems that for me to solve, but therefore it means that I am going to have to show up bigger. And God answered my prayer. And a month into the coaching relationship, Robin, I'm sitting here like, God, why are you doing this to me? And it wasn't God. It wasn't the client. It was that I did not have the systems in place. I didn't have the follow-up systems in place to justify the level of commitment that they expected from me. I did not have not only the follow-up, but then the process of what the communication was going to look like, what the benchmarks and the metrics were. And so I found myself drowning and then trying to figure it out as I was going. And there's nothing worse. And ladies and gentlemen, I believe in faith. I believe in sometimes jumping and building a plane while you're on your way down, but this was not the time to do it because I did not have the systems to support those blessings that I had been praying for, Robin.
Yeah, I agree. Similarly, in business, I mentioned earlier, that was a big thing. And There's so many areas that this touches. I remember reading a book, I think it was called E-Myth, a classic. And the premise of the book essentially is that as business owners, we need to set up our businesses like franchises. And franchises, one of the benefits of buying into a franchise are the systems that the franchisor provides. And that system can touch on things from how you hire, what you wear, how you do things, who does things, when, what, and so on, right? Where you put your business, and so on. I mean, there's so many things that what the benefit of a franchise are the systems that it brings to that person that's buying into it. And the suggestion was for us to run our businesses like a franchise. So that's where I kind of I heard it first from a mentor who suggested to me, Rob, you need to document everything. Document all the things that are done in your organization. Just have each person document. And so you can create a system of how we do things and that everybody does it this way. And so there are different ways that it's come to me. But what happened, quite honestly, is that I think it happens for most business owners, Neal, is that we're not thinking that way, right? We're out there, we're building our business and we're, kind of going with it as we go along. And in a lot of cases, that means growing with it as we go along. But a lot of us didn't start business out thinking about putting things in putting systems in place. Like I'm going to say one thing, for example, Neal, and then I turn it back to you. I probably said too much already, but one thing that is one that it causes us as business owners, leaders, to really have to think through and work through. This doesn't just happen overnight, but it's so important. And it touches on what you just talked about a little bit. And that's the customer journey, the buyer's journey. Maybe you've heard it that way, our listeners. But that's the idea of from start, when you start a client, to all the way through that journey that they're going to be on there with you. The more systematic we are about that, the approach to that journey, the more detailed, the more strategic, the more consistent that we are, the more intentional, that's probably a good word that summarizes all of that, about that journey is going to mean the better experience, the better journey that the customer will have. And so that, getting a customer, it doesn't end there. What's the experience that's going to keep them there? And not just keep them there, that makes them want to bring their family and friends and everybody else to join.
Yeah. Now, Robin, we've said this word system, and it sounds dirty to some people. We hear system, but what they interpret is restraint. They hear that they're being boxed in, because you mentioned we get into this thing. Many of our audience members are going to be entrepreneurs. They're going to be creatives. They're going to be these executioners that are going out and getting stuff done. And they're like, Neal, Robin, don't put us in a box. Don't put us in the corner, right? We want to be free. We don't want to become robotic by these systems. We're out here for the people. And I would say we have to be cautious and careful, because if we don't have the systems, yes, we want to be creative. We want to be free. We want to walk in our calling, but there is structure that is required. There's intentionality that is required. And so I want to look at this idea is of our blessing revealing our weak spots, Robin, right? And so I believe that the blessing that God gives us, the blessing that the universe or karma, whatever you all want to call it, when those opportunities come our way, we think that it creates these stress points or it creates weaknesses. Oftentimes it's just revealing what was already there or what wasn't there. And so before we got on the air, Robin, we were talking about receiving the blessing, but not having the system in place. And the blessing just revealed what was lacking. And we talked about the parable of the talents, right? 5, 3, 1, 5, 2, 1. And the one person, the person that had the one talent, his system was broken, right? He did not have a system to multiply or add. So what did the master do? He took that talent and gave it to the one who had more, who had 10 talents. And so I think that's important for us, because once those weak spots are revealed, then we're going to either have to grow and become bigger, or we're going to probably possibly lose that opportunity, especially if it's with the current client or customer that we're working with.
Yeah, man, I think of, to whom much is given, much is required. And so, yeah, I've said it before on the show, Neil, you and I experience it as business owners and as we work with business owners and leaders that we didn't sign up for leadership. We didn't sign up for we didn't sign up for these things, but as we grow our business, we realize that these are the things that are going to be needed, are necessary for us to continue to move forward. And so, yeah, man, I hear what you're saying, and it's so true. And you hear it from Robin, who already said that it's not my tendency to go that way. And so it's good for me to have people close to me who that is their tendency, because I recognize the need for it. So, yeah, it's not going to be easy. I agree with you. And I think it's good for us to say it up front. What does our mentor always say? Everything worthwhile in life is uphill, and it's uphill all the way. But when we do the uphill work, it's very satisfying, fulfilling, impacting, makes a difference, rewarding, and so on, right? So it's worth it, is what I would say.
Here, I wrote down a couple of things that I want to share about these opportunities, about the blessings, what they can reveal. And I have here that more clients reveal weak communication. Ouch, that hurts, right? Because that did reveal that for me. More money reveals weak financial discipline. And here's the one that I'm going to stop at. More responsibility reveals weak priorities. Right. So just right there, whether we ask for more clients and then our weak communication, we receive the blessing of more money, more resources, and that reveals weak financial discipline, or that responsibility that we did not sign up for. All of a sudden we look and it reveals the weak priorities. And ladies and gentlemen, here's what we want you to hear. We want you to hear and understand our hearts. It's not calling out, pointing finger, placing blame. It is making aware so that we can do what's necessary to prepare ourselves for those blessings that we know and believe are coming. And so, Robin, I want to ask you, when you find yourself receiving the blessing, when you find yourself walking in this thing that we have hoped for, that we have prayed for, how do you go about making sure, or is there a process that you have for saying, all right, or I know I'm in the blessing. How do I steward this properly if I have a good system, if I don't have a good system? Is there a time that because I know that hindsight is 20/20. When you're in it, though, how do you tell if your systems are up to par or if they need to be tweaked and improved a little bit? What's something that you're using to gauge that by?
You're not going to like this response, but if you're active in your organization, if your business is still in business, it needs it.
No question.
No question. So, and I hate, you and I were talking about celebrating before we came on this call. And I think we do need to celebrate. And sometimes Robin can have the tendency, because my tendency is to continue to improve and grow and make better, that sometimes I miss what we're already doing well. So we could have good systems in place, and we should acknowledge that. So I don't want to discount that. And I also don't want to miss the fact that some people like me might have the tendency sometimes to not celebrate that, right? And recognize that and reward that. And also, most important is acknowledge those who have helped to make that happen. But Neal, the reality is that there's always room to get better. There's always room to grow. There is always room to tweak. We haven't arrived. One of the things that I think is a constant, and then I'm going to pause for a moment here, Neal, but it makes me think about it as we jump into this topic today. A common denominator here is growth. A common denominator that all of us as business owners, as those who receive blessings, a part of that is going to require us to grow. And so what we're talking about here, when you talk about, more clients reveal, weak communication. So that's an area that we need to grow. More money reveals weak financial discipline. Neil, I am right there in my life right now. I've shared it with you. I think I've actually shared it on this podcast, but because it's something that I'm dealing with now, it's applicable to what we're talking about, a budget, right? I've been that guy that's for most of my adult life. So I remember in my early 20s really getting the opportunity to understand that there's a way to handle finances, right? And essentially, what you want to do is you want to live within your means, right? You try to avoid debt, you spend less than what you make, and you put away for the future, and you give, right? And so for most of my life I have lived within our means, but I'm recognizing now that I need to take a step further and really get to a budget.
Mhm.
And, I've had people help me with that in business. And so, it's one of those where people kind of had to be, come on, Rob, let's work on this. And, that's something where I am right now, for example, that in order for me to be a really good steward,
Mhm.
I need to really pay more attention to exactly what's going out, where it's going, and it's little things like a gym membership that I haven't used for a little while now. Do I really need to have that? And
Hold on,
having
wait, Robin. That's just an example. That's not real life. The gym membership that you haven't used isn't real, correct,
It's real
Robin?
life, Neil. Like I have a gym membership. I've actually gone, a side story. I've actually gone to cancel it, and the people there say the person who does it is not here. You got to go do it
They
online.
got you, Robin. Come
Yeah,
on, man.
exactly. And guess what? I still have it, and so it's But I don't mean to get distracted. But the point is that I need to get better. I can't just rely on the fact that we're spending less than what we're making. I need to fine tune that. Right. And so I think it means growth. It means improving. And a lot of times, I said I was going to stop, but one other word that comes to me is consistency, Neil. And so if there's any area where we don't have consistency, that's an area that we can try to get a system in place. And so consistency, you and I know, is key. And so, yeah, pause, Rob.
That's all great stuff. Ladies and gentlemen, you're here on the Big Life Podcast with Robin Lewis and Neal Oates Jr. Robin, you were just talking about growth, right? The common denominator is growth through
Yes,
everything that we talk about. I have
yes,
learned that one of the most important places that we can grow as leaders, and this is whether it's in business, family, personal, comes to growing to the point where you understand, accept, and then start to delegate, right? So our systems, sometimes this blessing that we've prayed for, if we've prayed for a big enough blessing and opportunity, it should be bigger than us. Do you agree?
yes,
So now we've prayed for this big thing, Robin, and it's happening, but everything has to run through me. I have grown to the point where I can handle most of it. I can do it. Yes, but then the reality is it becomes a bottleneck. So we know the caliber of individuals who listen to this podcast. We know that you're an achiever. We know that you are driven, that you're motivated, but hear me. The blessing can become a burden when everything runs through you. How do I know that? Because I have been burdened by the blessing because I held everything too tightly. I made every decision. I did every task. I had to make sure that every relationship was my relationship. Ladies and gentlemen, just hear me. In order for this thing not to crush us, for it not to crush you, we're going to have to grow to the point where we outsource, where we delegate some of the responsibility. Now, that does not mean, as we've talked about, Robin talked about in a previous episode, we don't just push everything off and then we abandon, but everything can't run through you, right? There's going to be some times, if someone can do it 80% as well as you can, we're going to have to hand some things off. So this is not abdicating responsibility or leadership, but the task might need to be handed off. And so we want to make sure that we're not creating dependent individuals, that we are empowering those so that we really can walk in and enjoy the blessing and not be crushed by it. So when we talk about everything running through us, Robin, do you have anything to add there that you want to share with the audience, sir?
Yes, sir. I've shared a lot about that because that's many times has played out in my life as a business owner. Is that our business, you know, actually it went in the opposite direction because of it, and that became a big transitional moment for me, opportunity, if you will, and. As a result, I had to grow and I had to do some of the things that you were talking about. And I had to, grow myself first, develop others. But what comes to my mind, Neal, is that, and I want our listeners to think about this because I see this all the time. You and I have spoken about this in the past, so I know you have experienced this as well. You think about people that you're doing business with, folks. Maybe it's a vendor. I've had vendors, many vendors where I see this happen, Neal, where they're doing really good service. They're providing a tremendous service to our organization. And so they're a vendor serving us. And then they do so well that, the company grows, they're getting more business. And then what starts to happen is that they don't put some of the things that you and I are talking about today in place. And a lot of stuff kind of has to come through them, and they, even if they get other people involved, the people that they get involved, there's no system to it. There's no intentional development to it. And because they don't have the capacity for it. And then what starts to happen is the service starts to fall off.
Mm-hmm.
And you see it happen time and time again. There is a statistics. I don't remember the exact number, so I don't want to say it wrong, but I believe it's over 80% of businesses don't succeed, are not in business after 5 years. And I think that's one of the main reasons. What we're talking about today is critical, that if people don't actually make that transition, if I didn't make that transition, our business would be done. That's the reality, right? And so the last thing that I would say, Neal, before I turn it back to you, is that as you were talking, one of the things that I thought about is this, that I would challenge our business owners and leaders out there with. Do you have a system for the development of your people? Like even that needs to be systematized. Do you have a system? Not just are you developing your people, but do you have a system for developing your people? Right? That's where you want to get to. If you don't, that's where you want to get to.
And Robin, I think that you posing that question to us here today is very needed. But here's the difference. We don't understand. We don't even know what we don't know. We're like, why is Robin talking about a system for developing my people? When the time comes, I will do that. Right? When I need a manager, when I need someone to step up, when the burden becomes too heavy and the weight just before it crushes or kills me, that's when I will start to develop the person. But that's not what you're saying. You're saying develop the systems to develop your people. Right. So,
Yeah.
but Robin, on that, and ladies and gentlemen, just listen to Robin and I have a conversation really quickly. But that is so tiring because it doesn't feel like it is making the money. It doesn't feel like it's moving the needle. It doesn't feel like that's why we got into this thing, to build a system, to build people, right? Where does that fit into my profit and loss? Where does that fit into my this month? Right? Because many times as entrepreneurs, as leaders, as as visionaries, we are looking at today. We're looking at tomorrow, maybe next week. We might be as wild. Like if we might go to the end of the quarter. But what you're asking us to do is to build a system to build people that is going to impact 6 months, a year, 2 years down the line. And that's a big ask for us as leaders and individuals. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree. I think as you do it, like when I think about myself, my experience, it got to a place where I needed to. What happens is if you, our listener, are where Neal just described, where you don't see the need for it, hold on. I don't mean to be the bearer of bad news, but as you continue growing, guess what's going to happen? You're going to need to do it out of necessity. That's the reality. Because if not, things are just going to go in the opposite direction. Like I just mentioned a while ago, over 80% of businesses don't last over 5 years. There's a reason for that. And everybody didn't set out with that idea. And I don't mean to scare anybody who's thinking about getting into business, but just do the things that the 20% do in order to go beyond the 5 years. And this is what we're sharing with you here this morning is one of those. But Neal, okay, I think for that person too, one thing that I would say before we get to a system for the development of people, do you have a system for hiring people? Like that's something that I eventually had to get going, for example, where if you just hire people and you bring them aboard and say, all right, man, welcome to the team.
And
Go for it.
family members, we're bringing our family members on and everything,
Yeah.
Robin. We go ahead, keep going,
Yeah.
sir.
All right, go for it. We're glad you're here. Come on, let's go. Roll up your sleeves. I mean, if that's your system for hiring, it probably won't work that well. I remember in my case, we were in a smaller room initially where we had about 4 employees. Everybody could see each other. We could hear each other. They could hear me. I could hear them. It was a lot easier to sort of help develop, nurture, clarify, just listen and you can hear how to say things, what to do. But then as we went beyond that, now all of a sudden people are in different rooms and no, it's, that doesn't work. Right. So do you have a system? I had to put in place, like I had to share, and I don't mean to bore people with my particular system. The point is that you want to set people up for success. You want to start with the right person, first of all. Like Neal just said, I don't know if he actually did this. He was probably talking about Robin. Like I remember hiring people that, I remember a customer came in one day saying they were looking for a job. You're looking for a job? I need somebody. Come on.
Robin, God has answered my prayer. No, he didn't.
And so you learn over time that you really do have to, like I'm saying something that people are probably laughing, saying, Robin, you really didn't know that? But you got to start with, qualifying who it is that you're hiring. Be clear about who you're looking for, and then be clear about who you're actually getting. And then have things in place. How do you operate? What are the important things? What are your values? What's the system that you have in place for the various things? What are the expectations? And so you have to have a system for hiring. The better you do that is the better you're giving them the opportunity for success and giving yourself the better opportunity for success and the better experience that your customers will have.
Absolutely, Robin. Now, ladies and gentlemen, here's what, if you know anything about Robin and myself, you know that we're always going to come back and talk about the main thing. And here is the main thing. You've heard this word system, you've heard the word growth. Then you heard system, then you heard growth. And then you heard system, and you heard what? Growth. Because here's where ultimately where it ends up. The blessing that we have been praying for requires a bigger and better version of you, of me, of Robin. It's not about someone else on the outside. You're here listening to this episode because you know that there is more required of you to do. But in order for you to do that, we must become bigger. We must become a better version. We must become the person that we were created to be. Because I believe, Robin, that sometimes we're asking for a bigger blessing, but God is trying to build a bigger person. And we're like, hey, just give me the blessing and then I will become bigger. No. What if you become bigger first and then you can handle the blessing? You can handle the success. You can handle the wealth. You can handle the influence. Because what we've learned, and you all hear Robin and I talk about some things that say, for these guys to be successful, they really made some dumb mistakes, right? Hiring family, hiring customers, clients who just came in. But what we've had to learn is that oftentimes bigger rooms require bigger discipline. Bigger influence requires deeper humility. And here's the one that I know that we take very seriously, that bigger leadership requires stronger character. And so if you would just hear our heart, something that we really want you to understand and we want you to work toward is, how do you become a bigger person? because you can have, and yes, we want you to have great systems for hiring, great systems for training and equipping, but what's your growth system? Because it's our belief, and I'm going to speak on behalf of Robin, that if we don't become the caliber and type of people, person, leader to handle the blessing, we're going to become a cautionary tale. We don't want to become that person where they say, Neal was at the top, but I guess he just couldn't handle the pressure. Right. So what do you want to say to our audience, Robin, as we talk about becoming that bigger person that God really can bless with the things that we've been praying for?
Yeah, I think what I would say to our listeners is, and I'm speaking for Robin on this behalf because Neal is way further than Robin in this regard. But I let Robin give you hope. Like I didn't have it all together. I still don't. You obviously know that if you've been listening to this for any period of time. But I have grown. I am better than where I was a year, 2 years, 5 years, certainly 10 years ago. But the hope that I'm giving you is this. I learned the hard way. I made a lot of the mistakes and it's okay. That's one of the things that I value so much now is that we're actually all a work in progress. Where perfection is not the goal, progress is. And so to take one thing from what we're sharing today, maybe there is a process that you have that you do. Let's say it's client intake. Take your client intake process and document it. Start documenting that. When we talk about systems, we're just talking about how we do things, who does things, how we do them, when we do them, why we do them. That's what creates a system. And so if you start documenting what you're doing, you can then start to tweak and create a system that works. And then once you have a system that works, then you want to implement that and to create consistency that this is the way that people are doing it, right? So that's what I would encourage you to do. Start one place. If it's not client intake, maybe it's hiring. If it's not hiring, maybe it's firing. Whatever it is, and then the other part, Neal, that you mentioned that I 100%, when I look at my life and you and I continue to invest in our own growth daily. That's a daily thing for me, folks. That's what we want it to become for you daily. That's what served me the most is my daily growth. So yes, the reason why I can give you hope is because I can grow. Even Robin can grow. And so, I made some of the, I'm not kidding you, like I've made some pretty big mistakes, right? I shared on one of our last episodes, I think it was last week, where, we lost 40% of our team one year. Right? Wow, that's not an easy thing. That's a responsibility that I had to own. That was on me. So when I say what I'm saying to you, I'm being honest. I didn't have it all together. And so the hope for you, if you're hearing this and you're thinking, well, I'm not so sure I have systems. I'm not sure I have a system for the development of my people or for hiring people or whatever, just fill in the blank. Any of my processes that I do as I go about my day, then there's hope for you in that. Start with one and recognize that you do need to invest in your growth in that regard. And Neal and I talked about this before we jumped on this call, and he shared a little bit about the parable of the talents. Here's the thing, it's when we do. If we don't do these small things, then what happens oftentimes is that we're not given the bigger thing. Sometimes the bigger thing that we want in life actually doesn't come because we're not handling the small thing well.
Robin, I have been praying for more clients, and I just launched a new site for my coaching platform. And I'm praying for clients, but I had to import my old clients over to my new system. And in doing so, I realized that there is a glitch in the scheduling. So they can schedule one appointment, but they can't go in and do the repeating scheduling for my monthly coaching clients. And I have had the hardest time trying to figure it out. Now I understand why I have not had I believe one of the reasons why I have not had the influx of new clients, because I am not prepared to properly intake. Now, here's the thing. In theory, and when I was testing it, it worked. But that's because I was testing it from my own email and it just recognized and it worked and everything plugged and played nicely. I had one of my previous clients try it, one of my current clients try it, and it's just not working right. And so now I sit back and I look and I'm like, I'm grateful that the size of the blessing didn't come until I could go in and fix the system. Because what is that going to look like to the customer, the client that wants to, that intake process to now where they're saying, I'm not paying for this. All right. This guy, everything looks and feels at this level until after I've committed my resources, after I've paid. Now the scheduling process is just bad. And Robin, I'm telling you, it's bad. It's clunky. It doesn't work, especially compared to what I had before. So today I am going to be working on getting that figured out, because if not, I'm going to receive a blessing that's going to become a burden and it's going to crush me, all because I didn't take the time to do what you said. Document and figure out that one thing, get that one system working properly. Then I can go back to the marketing system and the lead generation system. But right now, I've got a really important piece of my business that I have to get fixed, because otherwise you would hear me talking about, Robin, I've got a blessing and a curse at the same time. I have clients, new clients, but I had a lot of cancellations. Yes, the money came in, but I had to give refunds or discounts because the system didn't work. So ladies and gentlemen, when you hear Robin and I talk, we really want you to hear it through authentic lenses and to know that we're coming to you, that we're sharing some very real stuff. And so I want to issue a challenge to our people, Robin, and it's going to be a simple one. I'm just asking the question, where do you need to start? What blessing have you been praying for that your system cannot support? What system in your life, and we're not just talking business, ladies and gentlemen, what system in your life? Maybe you're praying for kids, but your home situation it's not systematized. You don't have it safe. It's not one where communication between you and your partner or spouse is where it needs to be to bring another human being that can't communicate into that environment. Maybe you're praying for a new car, but you have an old rundown car in the driveway. That's one thing I heard Steve Harvey give an example of. He said that he was praying for a brand new car. His mom said, son, you don't have room to receive the blessing. The old car that doesn't work is sitting in the driveway, right? So this is something that I want to issue to the people. Robin, anything you want to share today as we get ready to close?
Yeah, I love your transparency there. And it's such a great example. You have great systems in place, but you can even look at those great systems. So if you are listening to us today and you are that person that already has everything systematized, so you're really good at this. You've been very intentional and you've been doing it. My challenge to you would be to tweak. Like, when was the last time you reviewed, like Neal just did? Right? Run it through a customer. Have a customer go through it with the intention of, how does this feel to you? And so, in other words, all of our systems, even if you are that guy that has everything, every process, a system for it, we can still then go back and tweak it. Neal, I just share a real quick story. I won't give the details, but I remember way back when I was bringing my daughter to high school. It was a good little journey away from where we lived, and I used to stop at Dunkin' Donuts to get coffee. Depending upon what time we left to go there, I might try to stop before we get there, but most times it was after I dropped her off. And what I discovered in that process is that even a franchise like Dunkin' Donuts, it differed the service, the time that I received, the people that I experienced from one store to the other. I tried different ones on my journey back home or back to the office or wherever it is that I was headed. And it made me realize, I started to see my business through that lens, that here's a franchise. They have systems in place. That's what they are about. But you can go from one to the other and have completely different experiences. And the ones where you have the really good experience, you can tell they gave more thought to it. They were more intentional. They tweaked it. They saw it through the customer's eyes. And it revealed to me that I need to really be considerate of that. And so, man, I think we served our listeners today, Neal. If there's anything that we can have for them in the show notes to help them with that, like the person who doesn't have any system at all, I think we should put that in there.
Absolutely. We will put some added resources in the show notes for you in the description, whatever you call it, wherever you're watching this or listening to this podcast. We want to say thank you for spending time with us here on the Big Life Podcast. We want you to know that we care about you, that this is a place where you can come slow down, think about what your life, your business is, and so that you can grow. And Robin, before I get us out of here, anything you want to say to them in closing?
I appreciate you, man. I appreciate you bringing this topic to our listeners. I trust that we've added value today. So thank you.
And I want to thank you for giving me a chance to share, and then also for sharing with our audience yourself from some of the experiences, the real life experiences that we have. And we are going to wait to hear about that gym membership either being used or canceled. It's up to you, sir.
I
As
love
well
you.
as we will be giving an update. When I say we, I'm talking about me, myself, and I, about this scheduling little glitch that we have. So I'm not going to leave you all hanging. I'm going to let you all know that we did get this resolved. And if you all want to get in contact with Robin or myself, you all can go to the show notes, find all of our contact information, some ways that you can schedule some time with either of us. We open that opportunity to you all. But we want to remind you, as we always do, that we love you, God loves you, and there's nothing you can do about it. And until the next time we see you or you see us, we're right there with you.
Right
Peace.
on.